Live action remake after live action remake. Disney loves their remakes and they make a lot of money, but that does not mean that they're always great. So, why not rank all 25 of them? But if you want to rank some of these movies too, leave yours in the comment section below, and with that, let's begin this ranking. This movie is basically a Wendy movie. Disney decided not to focus as much on Peter Pan and focus a lot more on Wendy. Hence the title, Peter Pan and Wendy, instead of just Peter Pan. Now I can say I like some changes that this movie has. The story between Captain Hook and Peter Pan is my favorite part of this movie. What they added between their dynamic with each other and what they knew about each other in the past is something that I've always loved. It expands more on these two characters that we didn't need, but we like that they added something there. That decision, that little change is probably the best thing that any of these live action remakes have ever done. This movie has the best decision that any live action remake has ever done. That one dynamic between the two characters, just adding that bit of backstory just for those two characters, showing that they knew each other before, but now it's changed. That thing right there is my favorite change across every live action remake. But this movie is still in last place because it loses everything that the original film had. This movie just represents the worst of the worst that these live action remakes can be. You're changing so much of the original film. You're adding just so much extra stuff that's just no longer the original film anymore, and it loses everything the original film had, making it the worst Disney live action remake. Where this movie fails is that it's adding extra story into the movie. Now to be fair, the original Dumbo movie didn't really have much plot in there, so it makes sense that you want to add more story to it. But the original movie still worked. When you get to this movie, they're trying to add so much plot, they're trying to modernize the movie way too much, that you just changed it completely and it's no longer the original film anymore. And everything that they did add into the movie is just your generic, awful family movie. A family movie that you will find straight to streaming. That's basically what this movie feels like. Everything that they added into this movie makes it feel like a straight to streaming movie. This movie is lifeless, especially compared to the original film. Even if we say this movie's not a remake, it is still not a good movie. There's moments here and there that I do like, but the movie is not good. Now this movie kind of marked a trend of these live action remakes can be bad because the movies that came out before Maleficent were decent. Which I will probably talk about those movies a while from now. But Maleficent is really the first one that kind of marked these live action remakes might be bad. Yes, we do get a new spin to the Sleeping Beauty story, but it tries to make Maleficent a good person. That right there, awful sign. Which in reality, to make a good villain, you need to hate that villain, see them as a villain. And this movie undid all of that. You no longer see Maleficent as a villain, but as a misunderstood person. And you never want that for your villain. This movie now tries to introduce a relationship between Aurora and Maleficent, which I guess would have worked if we don't have the original movie, but we have the original movie. We know Maleficent is not a good person. We know she's a villain. So this entire movie just falls apart when you actually think that. You question, what are we doing here? Why are you making Maleficent a good person? Maleficent is in that category of an iconic villain from Disney. Granted, most villains are iconic from Disney, but she's in the top 20. And this movie undid all of that, making her a good person, kind of just undoing the movie. And the movie itself is not great. This movie is considered a live-action remake, although the only thing it's remaking is that one scene from Fantasia. Granted, the best part of Fantasia, so I was kind of interested in seeing what they were going to do with this remake. And this movie just came off as a Disney Channel 2000s movie. It gave me that vibe when watching the whole thing. Now granted, that Fantasia scene that they are remaking is the best part of this movie. But also feels extremely out of place compared to the rest of the film because it's just thrown in there for the sake of having it just thrown in there. Disney saw that was the best part of Fantasia, so they wanted to make a movie on it, but just doesn't fit. Now granted, I do think the first hour of the movie is fine. The last hour though, I don't know what really happened. Felt like nothing and came out of nowhere. But I can say this is how Disney should remake movies. Although it's not a good movie, it's essentially what these Disney live-action remakes need to be. Taking something that needs to be expanded on and expanding the story. This movie could have done it better, but it's a direction that the remake should be going instead of doing a shot-for-shot remake or taking all the magic out of the original film. But this movie's not my thing. I know some people who like it. I never really got into it. It is better than the original, but only because it's not a live-action remake. It's a new story building off of that remake. The original made Maleficent a good person, while this movie, she's more portrayed as a villain, which is a huge plus automatically. And since it's a sequel, we're getting a new story. And it works automatically better because you're not making Maleficent a good person in a movie that she's portrayed on as a villain. You're now making her a villain in a whole new story. So it just works more. Now granted, she still does a lot of good things in the movie, but she's portrayed more of as the villain this time. But although it's a new plot, it is still a boring plot. I just felt like the entire movie was forcing these subplots in about Maleficent's ancestors, that by the time we did get to the final act, it just felt unnecessary and it felt like they're just throwing it in there for the sake of throwing it in there. Made it come off as boring, like the first one, but better. Takes the life out of the animated movie and just gives us a lifeless remake. One key thing is that it's hard to capture emotion in animals from animation to live action. So in the animated version, they have more emotions, they have more thoughts, while in the live action version, you get a CGI dog with a blank face most of the time. So it's really hard to really connect with that animal. It looks fake. Extremely fake. The acting too threw me off. I don't know if it's the fact that a dog is talking in live action or the acting is just not good. But sometimes the dialogue is like, whoa, that was bad. Now I can say they added some new story to this film, so it's not a direct copy and paste from the original film. And I do appreciate them trying to add stuff in here so it's not a full shot-for-shot remake. But it's very much another soulless live-action remake. When the movie started, I found myself liking most of the ideas that they had in here. But as the movie continued to go on, till about the halfway point, I found myself not liking the cast of characters and just having a weak script. It's basically just the first movie but with different characters. That's essentially it. The new characters are nowhere near as interesting as the old ones. The script is basically been there, done that, but we changed a little bit up. We've done this before. I questioned why they made it, most likely money. What a way to ruin the first movie with a sequel, just for a cash grab. And I don't even know if this made a lot of money or not. This movie really only works as a one-time watch. Doesn't really feel like a real movie. Once the movie starts, it's shot-for-shot remake of the original film. So it feels like you're watching some parody on YouTube of someone who went in the wilderness and just recorded scenes for scenes of what's happening out there and made it into a Lion King movie. That's just how shot-for-shot remake this looks. It seems like a parody you would find on YouTube. But no, it's a Hollywood film that's almost made $2 billion. But this time around, we take away all the emotions about these animals, and we now have this. So every time an emotional scene happens, every time these characters are happy, sad, or whatever, they have the same look on their face. It runs into the same problems that Lady and the Tramp had. We don't care about these animals if they don't have any emotion. Yes, the story is the exact same. Yes, you can enjoy it because of that. But it's hard to care for anything when you don't care for the animals. And since it's a shot-for-shot remake that has been done better before, what else is there to say? And everything you added into this movie just brought the movie down even more because you did not need to add any scenes into this already perfect animated movie. So when you're remaking it, it's kind of hard to even top the original film. It's even hard to get to the same layer as the original film. That's why you should not have ever remade this movie. But it made money, so... This is a remake to an animated film that I have never seen before. So I can't really compare it to anything, but as a movie on its own, it's your generic family movie. That's all you can really say to it. It works well with families. It works well if you're watching it with your family. But the way the movie works, there's a ton of problems. Like the dynamic between the dragon and the kid is not fleshed out enough for you to actually care about what's really happening with the overall plot. You're never fully emotionally attached to these characters. And it seems like the movie just rushed through certain plot points just to get to the end of the film. There's no satisfying ending by the end of it all, because it's all rushed over, and nothing is fully fleshed out. And for the film being called Pete's Dragon, the dragon is barely in the film. However, I didn't hate it, but just has a lot of problems. I honestly don't think that this movie is that bad. Now yes, it's not a good movie when comparing it to the original film. Even if you don't compare it to the original film, it's still not that great of a movie. But most people say that this is the worst Disney live-action remake, and I was never there. Tom Hanks is easily the best part of this movie, stealing every single scene that he's in. And when the movie is a shot-for-shot remake of the original film, you can enjoy it because it's the original film. Although it is a shot-for-shot remake, I still feel like during those shot-for-shot scenes, it kept the magic the original film had. But only during the shot-for-shot scenes, because it still takes away the magic that the original film had. Most shot-for-shot scenes still had the magic, but every scene added in, and scenes that they kind of changed drastically to modernize the film, just don't have the same magic the original film had. Some scenes do. In fact, most of the scenes they shot for shot at the beginning portion of the film, I still think capture the same magic of the original. But when you actually get to Pleasure Island, they changed it drastically, and just every single thing they changed about the final act, or even before Pleasure Island, it's just like, okay, did you need to change that? And most of the time, they changed the scene too much. That's just no longer the same scene, and it just doesn't work. First half of the film, I think, does work, but then the rest of the film just falls apart. It has some magic the original film had, but not all the way. The most controversial film on this list is Snow White, and I can say Rachel Zegler, who is the most controversial part about this film, is probably the best part of this film. Her voice, she can sing, she knows how to sing. Speaking of singings, I feel like the songs in here aren't bad. Out of all the live action remakes on here, I think this one has the most new songs added, and the majority of them are actually good. And this movie fixes all of my problems that I had with the original film. The pacing, the rush to length. I feel like most of that is fixed, but we also introduced a whole lot of new problems because of that. For first, the story is completely different. It's not that bad, but it's still not that great of a story. First half is fine, second half goes downhill and feels completely rushed and chopped together. And the CGI dwarfs are like, why was that necessary? But this live action remake still has some of the magic that the original movie had, and fixes some of my problems with it, but has a lot of new problems. I do enjoy this movie, but it's not up there yet. I don't know what they were thinking about when they were remaking this film, because it feels like a completely different movie that's kind of has its own new magic to it. And why do you take out Mushu? Mushu! He's the best part of the original film, and you take him out? Automatically this film is bumped down just for that, because you're missing one key element of the original film. A plus side, the action is great, but you can tell they wanted to focus on that, because no songs, no Mushu, that was really bumping it down from the original film, because things that were key elements of the original film were the songs, was Mushu, and a lot of other things, but now you're taking that all away. So, the film's no longer really the same thing anymore. It's very much new with the same story. The only thing that's not original in this movie is this story. That's the only thing you can say they're remaking. That's the problem with remaking these films, is that even if you change it a lot, even if you make the story better, you already have a original film. So, automatically you're taking elements away from that film that are just not in here. So automatically, it's just not going to be the same thing. That's why you really can't remake these films. Once the movie finishes, there's nothing really to remember, but the movie's not bad. It's just not solid. But real quick, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1K by the end of the year, consider hitting that subscribe button, and let's continue. Definitely was a surprise. Everyone I know tells me how bad this movie is, and I have a vivid memory of watching it for the first time and thinking it was awful. And since I haven't seen the movie in a while, I didn't remember much about it, but this time around when rewatching it for this ranking, I was surprised and found myself liking it more than I thought I would. It's not great, but it isn't bad. I enjoy the direction of the story they decided to take. I'm a sucker for time travel stories, so automatically anything with time travel I'm going to like 10 times more. But then we learned some backstory about some characters. We didn't need that backstory, but also opened a new door for more potential that you could go with the story. But I do feel like the main overarching story is not really an Alice in Wonderland type story. Although I do like it, it doesn't really match the other movies. And the movie is a bit rushed and choppy here and there. But I did enjoy my time with it by the end of it. Man, it's nice to finally see Winnie the Pooh no longer as a horror character. Christopher Robin is nothing but a sweet, innocent movie. Continuing off the story of Winnie the Pooh, but also growing up with his audience, telling us a new story. Because now we have a time jump to when Christopher Robin is now older. And I like that concept because it's something new, and the direction that they decided to tell the story I did enjoy. It was nice, simple, in the best possible way. And the theme connects to everyone. It's not trying to be anything big, but also just a nice innocent watch. It has problems, but yet again, innocent film. Another shot-for-shot Disney live-action remake that still has everything great about the original film because it's shot-for-shot. But everything else they added into this movie to make it 40 minutes longer does not help the movie at all. If anything, it bumps it down because you did not need to add anything into this movie. The original film is already perfect the way it is. So trying to add all this extra layer into the film is only hurting the film 10 times more. The original film is perfect. Why are you adding these scenes? One scene I did like though is after fleshing out the romance between Ariel and Eric. You actually know why they're in love with each other this time, but that's the only nice thing they added in. But yeah, again, another shot-for-shot remake. You have the original film, but then you also have all this filler. Why not just go watch the original film? The Disney live-action remake that started it all. It's not bad, but it's not great. The movie essentially just feels like Tarzan, but you have Jungle Book elements in there. Jungle Book isn't really a nice name for it because there is just nothing really connected to the original film in here. Like I said, it's more Tarzan. It doesn't fully feel like Jungle Book until the last 20 minutes. Everything else before that is essentially Tarzan. The plot isn't bad. Although it's nothing like the original film, it's still entertaining enough. It makes it feel like it's not supposed to be a live-action remake. And maybe that was its purpose. Maybe it wasn't supposed to serve as a live-action remake. It's just naturally, over time, became a live-action remake. Then we have another shot-for-shot remake. But a shot-for-shot remake that still keeps the heart of the original film. Stitch is still a standout, the theme is still a standout, and the movie is still fun. All the scenes added were just fun scenes with Stitch and changes to the final act. But the pacing is bad. I don't know what happened because it's still the original film story, but they somehow made the pacing awful. In the final act, they kind of changed it completely, messed up character arcs in a way, and just a new villain they decided to place the villain with doesn't fit the character at all, and messes up his character arc, and the final act is just a mess, and is also a very forgettable movie, but enjoyment out of it because it's a shot-for-shot remake. Like most shot-for-shot remakes, it's really a one-time watch, and then you forget about it, because the original film is still right here. Essentially, if you love the original film, you're going to like this. If you like the original film, you're going to think this is okay. If you think the original film is okay, you're going to think this is bad. Simple as that. Will Smith is easily the best part of this movie and is what saves this movie by a lot. He delivers a funny performance as the genie and makes the genie his own character, not trying to copy what came before, but adding his own spin to the character, making him the best part of this film and the funniest part of this film. And speaking of the original film, the plot is still the original film. The best part of this movie are the original film scenes, and that's because it's the exact same story, a shot-for-shot remake, with scenes added in. And yet again, every scene that they added in just felt unnecessary. There's some things that they dragged out from the original film, which I do think worked. There's like 2 scenes in this movie that they added in that do work, but a lot of other scenes in here are unnecessary. Like most shot-for-shot remakes, you have a shot-for-shot of the original, and you add all this other stuff in that's unnecessary because the original film is right here. Will Smith is great as Genie, makes this movie worth watching, but still, the original film is right here, did it 10 times better. A significantly better movie than that 2019 remake. Every problem I had with that film is now fixed in here. The animals have emotion, and since that this is a new original story, we're not copying what came before, so now we actually have a new prequel story that feels new, because it is new. We're not doing a shot-for-shot remake. The songs in here that they added aren't bad, but I never found myself ever listening to them again. I Always Wanted a Brother was a song that was on repeat throughout December, all over social media, and it was never a song that I found catchy. None of the songs really in here stand out to me. And this movie doesn't really feel like an origin story to Scar. Just everything everything Scar goes doesn't really make him come off as someone that would kill his brother in the next movie. So, I feel like they could have done Scar much more darker as a character. I did not see myself rewatching this because the story is not too memorable, but it's still enjoyable enough. Serves as a solid prequel, but nothing over the top amazing. Now, this movie is responsible for Disney realizing they can make bank off of these live-action remakes. Everything that we get is because of Beauty and the Beast. Again, the movie works best when it's the original film. All the good scenes in this movie are the original film. And yet again, every scene added into this movie does not work because the original film is perfect. We did not need scenes added in there, so everything that you do add in makes it come off as filler and is not necessary. Catching a trend here, I can say some scenes in here that they added in fleshed out the romance a little bit, but was it necessary? Although the cast is great, this movie is still the exact same movie. I just feel like it did a better job at capturing the magic of the original film than a lot of the other films on this list. It's a shot-for-shot remake that still captures the magic the original film had, but it's still the original film. Emma Stone is easily the best part of this movie. She's bringing her own new version to Cruella while still being able to capture that cruelness of her. When watching this movie, I see Cruella, not Emma Stone. That just shows how good of an actress she is. This movie serves as a great prequel to the character. We learned about her obsession with fashion, how the character grew before the event of 101 Dalmatians. But again with Maleficent, you're making us care for a character who we do not need to care for. This character is very much evil. She kidnapped 99 puppies to have them as a coat. And now you're making us like her as a character. That doesn't work, but because the movie is good, it really saves that portion. Besides the movie feeling long and the third act needing to wrap up, this is a solid movie from Disney. It's just, you're making us care for Cruella. A lot of people say that this is the best Disney live-action remake. I'm not on that level, but it's still a solid one. The movie works better if you don't compare it to the original film. This one works a lot more as a retelling of that story, not as a live-action remake to the film. This movie added a lot of new stuff like fleshing out the king's character and adding more to Cinderella's story, but also took out a lot of great stuff the original film had. The talking animals are in here. Granted, it would be weird having talking animals in here. Like previous live-action remakes have proven, you can't really add emotion to these animals. But it's one of the things that made the original film. It always just felt like something was missing from this movie, but overall, not bad, but not the best live-action remake. Now the thing is, these next 3 on this list are 4 out of 5 films, showing just how good these live-action remakes can be because the majority of them are bad. About half this list was bad movies, And everything else basically up to this point was in that 3 out of 5 to 3.5 out of 5 range. So these are the only 3 movies on this list that are actually 4 out of 5 films that I would rewatch out of everything on this list, just showing the quality of these live action remakes. This is considered a live action remake, but in reality, it's just a sequel to Alice in Wonderland, but in live action, which is why the movie works so well. It's not a remake, it's a sequel. A few decades later, well, a lot of decades later sequel, but it works. Surprisingly, it works really well. An example of what these live action remakes should be doing. Not a shot-for-shot remake, a sequel like Alice in Wonderland. Take more inspiration from this. I'm not much of a Tim Burton fan, but this one certainly worked for me. Everyone in the cast did an amazing job, from Johnny Depp or whoever plays the Queen of Hearts. They all captured their animation counterpart, but now in live action. This movie is a lot more bigger in scale compared to the first movie, but I think that's where the movie works. It feels different, it feels new, and for a sequel in live action, that's kind of what you want. Sure, the final battle isn't that great, but I feel like this is a good example of what these live action remakes should be doing. What's with all the hate for this movie? 30% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes is absolutely crazy to me. This is easily the best out of all the Disney live action remakes. Glenn Close is perfect casting for Cruella. She brings the animated version of the character to life. We got 3 different versions of Cruella in the Disney universe, and she's the one that stands out the most to me. When we get to the story itself, it's basically the original film, but just improved on the story. Like these live action remakes should be doing. If you did want to do a shot-for-shot remake, you improve on the story. That's why remaking stuff like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin don't work, because there's nothing to improve on. Something like 101 Dalmatians, there's stuff to improve on. That's why this works. Although I do agree that the original film is a classic, I do also acknowledge that there's problems with the film. Well, this one fixed it while having its own spin to it. It's not perfect or better than the original film, but it's an example of what these live action remakes should be doing if they wanted to do a shot-for-shot remake. This is the only Disney live action remake that is better than the original film. I just felt like this remake was able to flesh out a ton of more things than the original film was able to do. Like making the villain more of an iconic villain. The villain in the original film, same villain, but it's forgettable in the original film. While this live action remake, he is more memorable. A lot of the scenes in this live action remake I now associate with the Jungle Book. So when I did rewatch the Jungle Book animated movie for my Disney ranking of ranking every single animated movie they did, I forgot how much of this movie was not in that movie. So the entire time watching that animated movie, I was thinking of how much better that this live action remake was compared to that movie. Just because the story is more fleshed out, these characters are more fleshed out, and the movie just works so much better in this format because it did so much more of the story. The original never really felt like a full connected story, well this one does. This is what live action remakes should be doing. Improving on the original film. Fixing problems with the original film, or making a live-action sequel to the original film. These top 3 on this list represent what the Disney live-action remakes should be doing, while everything else on the list just proves why these live-action remakes don't work. But anyways, if you like this video, maybe leave those on the side or institute too. Like, subscribe, see you guys next time. Goodbye.